Mike Creedon, president of Sault Major Hockey Association. How are you today, Mike?
I'm doing great. Loving in the warm weather and getting ready to think about, heading to camp.
And can you first, before we get into the 21-22 season, can you talk a little bit about the 2021 season, what we did have in Sault Ste. Marie with Sault Major?
Well, Sault Major ran two consecutive 13-week sessions, and including a couple of for some groups there was an extra week on each end of just practice time, and we got 24 of those 26 weeks in. A little bit of a break at Christmas, of course, because we got into a shutdown, and that shutdown got extended. But then we eventually opened the second session and got most of 11 weeks out of those 13 in. We had some competitive play at our elite divisions where we had the AAA of one, what would typically be our AAA of one age group, although we're not allowed to call it that because we weren't allowed to do any evaluations. We weren't able to do any selection processes. And we played them against a group a year older, so they had equal competition, balanced competition in little pods of 40. And then we had pods of 40 in our A and our house league groupings as well. Which, you can dwell on the negatives. There was rule modifications. There was, you only had 10 kids per team. So if one or two were missing, it made kind of a sloppy game out of it. Some people had some negatives about the 3-on-3 rules, not having face-offs, that sort of thing. But there was a lot of positives that people could concentrate on and be happy that we were far more successful than most towns, most associations right across Canada.
And that's the one thing is some of the other Northern Ontario communities tried to do a little bit of hockey, but Sault Ste. Marie for the province, just like you say, the Canada, got quite a bit of hockey in, I guess, for a season that really wasn't a season, right?
Yeah, and it was all sanctioned and legal and properly. Proper protocols were followed, and yeah, there were teams that could have, or kids that could have enlisted and gone to these unsanctioned tournaments and stuff like that to try to get more exposure. But the protocols being followed there, and were there any protocols? And they're not following Hockey Canada, so they don't really have a governing body, and we were able to do all that with following safety protocols, the concerns with COVID and such. So, and we had no outbreaks within our association. We, touch wood. We were very fortunate that we had nothing internally that we had issues with.
And before we talk about changes for 21-22, if everything goes nice and, like you say, starts getting better with all the vaccines and everything, are we going to see usual hockey back to what it is, or do they really know yet?
Well, I did read something the other day that we still have to submit a plan to the OHF, so we can't just start up and get going. That's the first thing. The second thing was that so the OHF, this is something that's different, has provided a calendar. So if things are normal, which really it's all going to be the state of emergency. As long as we're in our state of emergency and we're limited to how many people, then we have to modify to follow the local and provincial health regulations. If we see that lifting, which I certainly hope that by September, with everybody that they're planning on vaccinating, that our numbers are way down. If we follow what I'm seeing happening in other countries like the United States, there's a really good possibility that by September, we're allowed to put a proposal in that'll see hockey go back to normal. But there are some initiatives that are being implemented starting next year, including there's nobody can get going with any tryouts until the Tuesday after March break. Usually, our major midgets and some of our other AAA programs have pretty much decided on their team by the time long weekend, the Labor Day weekend is come and gone, and so now they have to wait until the Tuesday after. They also have to as an association, Sault Major has to provide up to 3 sessions or more. We'll target 3 because that's what they're asking for. Just get the kids back into the groove, do some drills, do some skills, get the kids on the ice 3 times before tryouts even happen. So that's not the coaches doing that. That's the association will have to incorporate and develop a way of doing that, whether it be hiring, whether it be, how we do it. And then we, of course, can charge the players that want to partake in that. So if a kid decides to play football or decides to play soccer or whatever other interest, just go to camp and fish for the summer. The idea is that they won't be held back or at a disadvantage because they'll get those 3 skates, get the rust off the blades, and be ready for the tryouts. During those 3 skates, there's no evaluations allowed. So the coaches are really, they might be in the building, but they're not supposed to be doing any evaluating because in some cases they might have a kid that's on the ice or whatever. So no evaluations. After that, we're allowed tryouts. And then after tryouts, which something else that's new is that we have to give, I believe it's a 3-week period of team development. So they do skills and drills together. They can work on whatever team stuff they need to, but there's no games for 3 weeks. And then after that, then they can open up with games and playoffs. They can do exhibition games during that 3-week period as part of their team development. So hockey, if everything's if COVID's all clear and we're free to get back to normal, hockey will start a month later, maybe by the time we go through that process. So with that, Hockey Canada has put new game limits. So I think at midget, the maximum they recommend is 55 games, and then less as you get younger. The other thing that the OHF has asked and that we'll probably see at Sault Major in most, if not all, divisions is they'll go to a tournament style playoff. So maybe a round robin, or if it's a really big division, if we had a division of 6 or 8, maybe it would be divided into groups, round robin, then semifinals and finals. A smaller group like 4 would just play a round robin, and then whether you go 2 versus fourth place is out, 2 versus 3 in the semi. First place is waiting for the winner of the 2-3 game, or whether it's just a semi-final and final. All that still has to be decided. But instead of them best of 7 series and best of 5 series that Sault Major's been running, and not just Sault Major, but the NOHL, the Great North Midget League, everybody's going that direction. So you're going to see a lot of that playoff format moving forward. One of the advantages of that is a team that's in that quarterfinal game isn't done a month before the teams that are in the finals.
Yeah.
Everybody gets finished at the same time. So you can plan your schedule, you can plan your costs, you can, it makes things a little easier on the management end of it.
And talking again about Sault Ste. Marie, and we'll use the Sault Thunderbirds. They're not part of the Sault Major, but we'll use the Sault Thunderbirds, say Blind River or Espanola, where they played non-contact. And we noticed a lot of the smaller guys got to skate a lot more. Where when it comes to next year, when it comes to bringing contact back in, is that something that kids are going to have to get used to again? Because I'll use if anybody who did play in Sault Ste. Marie this year didn't have contact. So is that going to take a little bit of time to get used to again? Because it's almost a year off, right?
Yeah, kids are pretty resilient, and I think they can adapt pretty quick. But you've got a group now that they left the Pee-wee age group. We're supposed to go into Bantam last year. They didn't get the contact. Well, they did go into Bantam. They went into the U15 is the new word for that now. And they didn't get any contact. So they didn't get that contact development. Now they'll go into second year U15, still not having learned. So there's going to be a transitional period. One of the really nice things, I guess, if you could say that, the upside of that fact is that those kids that were supposed to play contact for the first time, they're going to be mixed in with a group of kids that are a year younger. So that whole division will all be first-time body contact players. Now, when you get into the older ones that are U18, some will have experience with body contact at different levels and different amounts of experience. But Sault Major, a couple of years ago, we went to make our house league actually true house league, and they're not body contact. Love it or hate it. A lot of the coaches recommended that to the Sault Major board. The Sault Major board accepted that at the U15 level, and we saw a definite improvement in the skating and the skill side of the game for that house league level. We're moving that into the U18 now. So our U18 house league will be a true house league with no body checking. So there'll be still an A division if you can, push yourself and make the A division or double A division at U18 and play with body checking. Or if you don't make that division, then you'll play in a non-contact, non-body checking. There's still contact, but no body checking in that purely house league level. And we definitely saw a tremendous amount of improvement on the skating and the finesse side of it. You're seeing big kids, 240-pound kid that would normally just go out there and clobber somebody. Well, now nobody really wants to get in his way still. He's still 240. But now everybody's poking at the puck from a distance, and he's able to put some moves on now. And he's because he can't hit, he's not worrying about that part of the game. And he's developing his skill, and you're seeing a big improvement in that. So we're excited to see it at the U18 level as well.
And that's something where, and again, not talking about parents or hockey parents in Sault Ste. Marie, or not just Sault Ste. Marie, but I'm going back. I'm 51 years old. I grew up in Grimsby, Ontario, down near Hamilton. So 35 years ago, our house league was non-contact. So when I played house league, there was no contact, and it was not frustrating. We thought, okay, no contact. It was still good hockey.
Absolutely. I think what you'll see is as the stigma of playing house league kind of, drops off, and there's going to be players that say, you know what, I want to play the non-contact, because in a couple of years they're in the men's league, which is all non-contact anyways.
That's where we all end up, right?
Exactly. So some kids are just going to get there a little earlier and get into the non-contact game a little earlier. And if that means less kids leave hockey out of fear of the contact or the body checking, then it's something, we want to provide. And sometimes those kids that leave hockey are very skilled. They just don't want the contact, So, I never had to worry about that with my own kids. But lots of kids worried about that being on the ice against my kids, right? And I don't want anybody to leave hockey just because they're scared or because they don't the body contact. So hopefully this will increase our numbers, keep more kids playing longer, and make it more enjoyable for those that are they're just out there to have fun. They just want to play some games, right?
And we've talked, like, say, off camera, you said 21, 22 for Sault Major, not just Sault Major, for the North, is changing a little bit, the landscape and how teams are where they're playing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the NOHA took the lead on this and has kind of looked at what they're doing with their AA. Our AAAs have always had a league around the North to play in. Our AA, when you look across the NOHA or the Northern Ontario Hockey Association, you've got teams like Timmins that's been going down and playing in leagues in Barrie and there. So that's tremendous amount of travel. Their home games, I think, was Perry Sound. You've got teams in the east that are along the Quebec border that have been jumping the border and going into Quebec to play their games. And then you had the Sioux, which has been hitting the southern border into Michigan and playing in Michigan leagues at the AA level. And so what they've done is kind of reorganized into divisions into the north and asked all of us to come back. And so in most cases, we're going to have a parallel league to what our AAAs are in at the AA level. No longer having to worry about trying to get to Marquette or Houghton or whatever in the middle of a snowstorm. I mean, yeah, you still got to go to Sudbury and those places, but you're not following, Lake Superior as you're driving, so it should be a little easier. Very competitive leagues. The leagues have existed in the past, but they wouldn't allow us in there, and now they're allowing us in, which is big because our especially our Atom AAs never really fit in the NIHL. We were either too good or we weren't good enough when we were too young when we were first year U11. So we struggled to find a really good fit league for our teams, and now we'll have that. Our home games will be in the Sioux right here. So we're looking forward to this. This is really good. So we'll have AA at the U10, U11, U12, U13, U14, U15, and they've been in talks with other associations. We might even have one for our U16 AAs. So it could be a real positive to get a place for our AAs to play. Which would include home games. What's happened in the past is some of our Sault Major teams have been able to negotiate to play in this Nickel District. It's going to be run by the Nickel District Minor Hockey League, but now it'll have there'll be a board of directors developed, and every association will have a say on that board of directors, and the NOHA will have a little more influence on what's going on and how it's managed. In the past, we've been able to get approval to be a guest team in that at certain age groups. I think if we had normal hockey this year, one of our teams was accepted under the condition they play their home games in Blind River. That's not long-term sustainable. You could get a group to buy in for 1 year, but long-term, that's not a sustainable option, in my opinion. So this is really good news because it's long-term sustainable. We're going to get home games. Grandma and Grandpa, hopefully, COVID will be lifted and Grandma and Grandpa can get in the building and see some good competitive hockey. And I expect it to be a better long-term fit for our teams than what we've had.
Now, a question I have is the Sioux Junior Greyhounds, the women's program, the girls program, is that under Sault Major or is that still under the women's hockey?
Completely under the women's hockey, completely separate from even the NOHA, the OHF. It's a separate branch, kind of at the OHF level is where it separates. It goes to the OHF for the mixed gender league, like what we're in, and purely girls hockey under, and I think it's OMHA or I don't know.
OWHA.
OWHA, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So only reason I bring that up is because I talked to a lot of, again, the Sioux Junior Greyhounds women's, and they don't have a league to play in either. So with you guys moving into doing this with other districts in the north, maybe that might open up for the women also, that showing that it will work. If it's working for you guys, it might work for them too, right?
Well, yeah, you got the Sudbury Lady Wolves. I am sure North Bay has a team. I think it would be a good thing if the women were able to all get an organized league and have a representative type league in that's across the north. But that would be an OWHA responsibility to kind of coordinate and sort of like the NOHA has done in this case.
And again, it's something they just Sault Majors and the women's all just represent the Junior Greyhound program, as in just when it comes to the jerseys and everything, right? They're just all the same.
Yes. Yeah. Thankfully, so that would be our AAA programs.
Yep.
Our AA programs, except for the Atom, the Atom AA's are considered are considered on the same level as our AAA, because we don't have Atom AAA, or U11 AAA is the proper term now. So our U13 and our U15 AA's are not Greyhound programs. They're part of our elite guidelines and part of our elite programs, but they're not junior Greyhound programs.
Okay. And now, when it comes to the teams playing in the States, like say the NIHL, with the border closed, was that a little bit more of an incentive to do this in the North and because not knowing what's happening in September?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious that having teams cross the border, it's getting more and more difficult. But what we've been seeing is a general trend of less and less of the American teams having the passports needed to get into Canada, and then realizing, and our games having to get pushed back later and later in the season to give people the opportunity to get those passports. So, we were having more and more difficulties getting teams to come to Sault Canada. Sometimes games were having to happen in Sault, Michigan, which then, I mean, yeah, we're pretty adept at going across the river. But I don't know about grandma and grandpas, whether they want to go over there or just watch a game here, So, we're trying to develop something that, that the border issues are no longer, they can still choose. Like, I fully expect a lot of our AA teams to play the Lakers from Sault, Michigan as exhibition. But that gets into those. I touched upon the fact that, there's a mandate from the OHF as to the number of games you should have in a season. Michigan hockey has been doing that for a number of years. So you have to watch your game count. So I know there were cases before where we would touch base with an American team, and they would say no because their game count was too high.
Yeah.
So, and talking about the Wildcat, I assume they're still called Wildcat program, Junior Greyhound, Sioux Female Wildcat program, or Junior Greyhound, whatever they go by. But they've traditionally played a lot of our AA, and they'd play a AAA team that was a couple of years younger or whatever. There was a lot of those exhibition games that happened. Each team probably getting 3 or 4 of them and stuff. Again, now there's going to be, what's our game count at? What are we projecting for a game count over the course of the season? We can't get over, say at U11, where they can't get over 45. They're going to be watching that pretty tight, because if you've got a 30 game schedule, 3 tournaments at 5 games, that's 45 right there. You don't even have room for your playoffs, right? So
go ahead. Yep.
Yeah. So that's something that teams are going to have to watch. And, I hope it doesn't, cause any issues with our exhibition games with the Sioux Female Association, as far as their junior Greyhounds playing some of our junior Greyhounds on occasion,
Because I'm going back, my older son's a 94. So I'm saying he's 27 now. But I remember when he was 94 and playing, then it would be a U11 now, Adam. Yeah. And there, between practices and games and tournaments, they were on the ice 108 times that season. And so where the OHF is starting to say, hey, 108 times between September and April, it's too much for kids, right?
Yeah, I think at our AA and AAA level, 108 is a pretty standard number. I think they would still get that. A lot of these teams are practicing 3 and 4 times a week, and then they're 45 games above that. So you go 3-4 times a week times however many weeks, and then add in 45 games. You're going to be, I heard a number, and I think the last time I managed a Bantam team a year ago, I think we were like closer to 180 ice times. So yeah, that's basically the OHF, and the OHF is not mandating any maximum number of ice times, because they want the skill development and the practices and stuff, but they want less. They want the games to mean more, right? If you're in a game every other day, you don't get as up for the game. You don't get as amped up. You don't get it, and it becomes less important. And the games are where you're supposed to be showcasing your skill and your talent and we want players to think that the game's special and to come out and put their best foot forward when they are playing a game. So, and again, I don't want to try to figure out the logic of the OHF's number, why you got there, but at the same time as they want players to be developing through their skills and drills and practices and all that stuff, they want the kids to be able to maybe go skiing or maybe go snowshoeing or snowmobiling or ice fishing, or so they want them to have a day off now and then. They want them to have a weekend off now and then. They really want, especially not so much the U18 program, but pretty much every other program, they'd like to see them have the summers off, right? There's a lot of studies out there that say in cross training, doing something different for the summer will actually make you a better player at the end. And then, and I guess that has a lot to do with those 3 sessions before tryouts. Now you don't have to necessarily do something all summer, because Sault Major is going to make sure you have that 3 sessions are available to you before you get evaluated. So they're trying to make that jump that, you don't necessarily have to be a 12-month of the year hockey player to excel. And I mean, you go back to Wayne Gretzky, all these guys that have talked in the past, they played lacrosse in the summer, they played this or that. And they talk about how they really enjoyed their time off hockey. And they were, a little more motivated when they got back in. So I think the OHF at the younger levels is really trying to promote that sort of thinking, and to have kids, you start doing it at U10, U11, U12, U13, U5, U14. That's 5-6 years, 12 months of the year. That's repetitive injury syndrome, right? Like, yeah. So that's part of, I think, what they're trying to put together. And that's why coaches are not allowed to evaluate until that September something deadline. And I don't want to say September. Well, it is September something, but at different age groups, it's also a different starting date. So at our U10, U11, they have to wait a week after Labor Day. So they want them back in school for an entire week before they even think and get into a routine, get into, and feel comfortable where they're at before you add in hockey. So different age groups, that starting date's a little different. But in general, it's shortly after Labor Day. They really, Hockey Canada and the OHF really don't want us having the kids evaluated or pressured or whatever to be in hockey all summer.
And the other thing is comes to, I'm saying, even the AAA level, the AA level, but House League, and most kids that playing House League is because they love the sport and they want to play. But really, for Ontario being locked up for 16 months, these kids are going to be excited, between 15 to 20 kids in one room, to be able to sit there and just chat before going on the ice. It's just going to be huge. And it's not just in hockey, it's in any sport, really, right?
Absolutely. I mean, part of playing sports is the locker room and learning how to deal with each other in those situations, and not have it go out of control, not get silly or stupid with some of the things that go on in that room. All of that learning experience. And I mean, that locker room, that's the coffee room at work. That's the lunch room at work later, right? You learn proper decorum and stuff in the locker room. That carries forward to your occupation eventually, having my oldest son just go through the interview and process with the Sault Ste. Marie City Police, you could see they actually look for that experience of the locker room to apply it to the squad of a police squad, right? And so, not everybody makes that correlation between the two, but quite often one has a lot to do with the other. And so I'm sure the kids and the worry of repetitive injuries, I mean, right now is gone because they've all been off the ice, mandated
Yep.
for a number of months now.
Not even in school, really, too, right? So
No, exactly. So they're dying to be with their friends. They're dying to get to the rink. There's probably going to be a few instances of kids getting just a little too excited and too silly when they do get back and can go there under normal without having to wear a mask and without all that nervous energy of the COVID regulations. I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of silliness and stuff. But our staffs will make sure that they keep it, under control pretty good.
And the one question I have, because again, everything is still uncertain. Every day we wake up, we don't know what's happening still. But when it comes to, I guess, for parents who are registering their players and with everything being uncertain, how's Sault Major dealing with that for if I was to register my child and they're worried about what's going to happen in September or whatever else? How are you working that in Sault Major?
So right now we haven't really been mandated by the OHF or the NOHA on what they want us to do. Last year they mandated break it down into like 10-week sessions, 12-week sessions. That way each parent, each time they sign up for a session, they can pay less, keep it at a break-even point. Don't add anything to your coffers type of thing. And we probably, at the end of the day, last year, we probably lost money trying to keep it inexpensive for the parents.
Not to interrupt, but who didn't lose money last year, right?
Well, exactly, right. So, and the year before that, we probably made a little bit of money because our banquets got canceled, which is a big expense, and we never refunded anything for that. This year, we did get the opportunity to refund to everybody. If we were refunding directly back to each player, Hockey Canada kicked us back some money on the insurance, and then the NOHA kicked us back some money on the per player based on the registration fees, because normal registration fees are X amount of dollars, and most organizations only got so many weeks, which is a fraction of a normal season. So they kicked some back. So we kicked it back directly based on each player getting some insurance money, getting some NOHA money, as well as whether they got 10 of the 13 weeks in or 11 of the 13 weeks in, type of thing. So the number of ice times they were kind of shorted, we paid back an amount representing each ice time. And we're going through that process right now. So for next year, we're not even putting a registration up until sometime in June, which right now we'd normally already be starting to open our registrations up.
Yep.
We haven't made any decisions as to the amount. So there's a lot in the air as far as the registrations. I would say probably 99%, we would be setting our registrations up for a normal year. Not with the smaller sessions or any. It would be a normal, full year. That's what the registration is, and this is what the expectations will be, and et cetera, et cetera. And then if we get delayed and we have to play modified for a month or something, then we'll have to backtrack and make concessions that way. Our hope is that we're get to do normal tryouts, normal evaluations, drafts for our local leagues, all of that, and so it'll be, our registration this year will look more like a normal season, in my opinion.
And is the executive worried that the numbers might be down after number of kids didn't play the last 16 months?
In Sault Ste. Marie, to be honest with you, we had the Sault Major Hockey Association had 97% fill rate. So we were 97% of the players we had the previous year. Compare that to other associations, it was extremely high. The OHF had told us to expect only 50%. So of course we were elated to have that many kids stay in. One of the factors there obviously is high school hockey didn't go, and nobody knows what's going to happen with high school sports still, even for September. So we'll see where we end up. We hope that we can keep our numbers high or even improve. We're the drop off of players that worries me the most is when they leave because they don't like body checking.
Yeah,
because they're just leaving hockey. And so we that's the first ones we want to address. If they're leaving to go play another league, at least they're still playing hockey. They're still enjoying the game. When they're dropping out because whether it be a bad experience or the fear of the body checking, and that's why we're addressing it with their house league. And then the others, will hopefully our numbers stay. Hopefully our numbers grow. We hope to, but at one time we used to have a double A, a double B, and a house league. And if we could get back to that, that would be great. Be great for Sault Ste. Marie, great for hockey, and great for the kids.
But that goes back to, I use above Parry Sound, we'll say. The numbers have shrunk and are shrinking in Northern Ontario when it comes to population too, right? So when you have 1,000 kids playing at Sault Major and now it's 850, it's not always they're not playing. It's our population wasn't what it was 15 years ago either, right?
Yeah, and then the demographics of our population is changing too. Like I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said our numbers. Somebody that should know said our numbers are, whatever the number was, but it demographically, it's different. You're seeing a lot of students come in that are from out of the country, and they count in our demographics, I guess, as part of our population. And then you're seeing where the government is purposely, in our whether it be our local government, provincial or federal government, purposely initiating and trying to fill population numbers with immigrants, and they don't. You might see a growth in soccer or in other sports that are more culturally, before you'll see it in hockey, before they'll fall in love with the game like the rest of us have. And so there is a cultural difference where a lot of times when we fill 10,000 a population of 10,000 with immigrants instead of as opposed to people that have left the area to find work and immigrate and migrated to Southern Ontario and never came back after going to college or whatever the case is. So there's less families up here. So filling them with immigrants, that changes the dynamics, and I think that makes it even more important that it's non-body contact, because they marginally enjoy the game, right? So they're not diehards that are willing to put their nose into the tough spots, and they just want to come out and have some fun in the game. And locally, I think the fastest growing hockey league is the women adult league, and that's all non-body contact as well, right? So because they just want to get out and be with their friends and have fun. So that, again, it makes it important that we provide that non-contact league and provide that opportunity for somebody to dip their toes in the water and try hockey.
And that's exactly it. And I go back, and we've been fortunate in Sault Ste. Marie, whether it's the Greyhounds or the Colin Millers, Nicholas Porco, Keegan Stevensons, like say, you have gone on to different levels. But I always joke around, where do they always end up? Recreational men's hockey, no matter what level they have played at. So, and that has no body contact.
Exactly.
So you still end up when you're 45 years old, 60 years old, you're still playing non-contact. So you end up full circle.
100%. Nobody wants to lose work because the hockey game got stupid, right? And you know what? You're actually seeing that from kids. I shouldn't call them kids, or young men that are playing U18 hockey. They don't, I hear that where I never did before, because I don't know if they're getting part-time jobs younger, but there's a lot more competition for our AA and our house league kids between hockey and work, where the schedule has to be set up in a way that's kind of work friendly, And
almost a month in advance, just so they can get their schedules right, like work schedules to work.
yes, exactly. We do the best we can with that, and but you you do hear that even from the U18 level. Games are getting stupid. I don't want to play contact because I don't want to miss work. It's not worth it for me to miss work, right? So,
So it shows it's good for our youth, showing what the direction that they want to go.
100%, 100% responsible young men that, and, I guess maybe their cell phone, they don't want to miss a payment on their cell phone. I don't, we didn't have that problem when we were growing up, right? So,
Exactly.
no such thing. So, but yeah, I hope that our numbers stay high. I hope that we're able to grow our numbers back a little bit and, continue to keep hockey thriving in for the youth in this town.
And the last question is for people who don't know, again, new to hockey maybe, or like say, or to register when registration comes out. Where do they find Sault Major, and can they find the registration?
So SaultMajorHockey.ca. There's a registration tab. And you click on that. It's not open yet. But we're hoping by the middle of June we'll have that open and decisions made. We have our AGM coming up in another week. So executive members will be decided upon and constitutional changes and stuff. And then after that, that's when we'll get our registrations out because, we'll let the new board decide on those factors and stuff like that. But yeah, SaultMajor.ca. I hope to also have a question and answer section up there soon. For those, there's some differences, of how hockey's managed between the Pee Wee Arena, or Sault Pee Wee Hockey League, I should say, and Sault Major. And, parents, after half a year or a year, they say, oh, I didn't realize this, or I didn't realize that. And, it's quite a bit different here, in how Sault Major deals with this or that or the other thing. And so we're going to try to get that, section on there too of the differences. So if a kid's coming from the Sault Pee Wee and thinks something should be a certain way, but we do it different, it'll be right there, an explanation of it. Like one of the simplest ones is practices. At the Pee Wee Arena level, at the Sault Pee Wee Hockey League, they provide, however, a 20 game schedule and a 20 practice schedule. Sault Major provides just a game schedule. Now, we'll also provide practice ice for our teams, but the teams have to pay for that. So they collect money from the parents to pay for that, as well as tournaments and other things. And because they see those practices on their regular schedule and not as a amendment to it or as a note that goes home with little Johnny, they think, oh, those are all league practices, so we don't have to pay for those. But no, that's not correct. It's Sault Major, and that's just one example. There's about 6 or 8 different things that we're going to try to get up there and try to explain, so that parents that have never been involved in hockey, maybe have no preconceived ideas, it informs them, and those that have been involved all the way through with the Sault Pee Wee Hockey League, they can see the difference, and they can understand those. Another one is always our draft rules. People are very surprised that we have protections in our draft. So as a coach, if you pick a first year U13 or first year Bantam player, U15 is what that would be, and the kid's playing at the same caliber level next year, you can protect him and get him at a certain round of a pick. That surprises people and thinks it creates an unfair environment, and it really doesn't. It really has little effect on the draft. What it often does is, if Mr. Smith is coaching at a certain level for year after year after year, it gives him a little bit of an advantage compared to Mr. Jones that comes in and has followed that age group since they were 8 years old, and his kid's now in Bantam, and he's going to take a team in Bantam. He knows the kids inside and out, knows the parents inside and out, and whereas Mr. Smith is trying to figure that kid out in 3 tryout or draft games, right? You're not going to have that same level of knowledge on the players in situation B compared to situation A, or vice versa. So it gives that guy that's coaching at Bantam year after year after year, it gives him kind of a counterbalance for the guy that is following a certain age group through. But that's the type of thing that parents, number one, are surprised about, and we get a lot of questions, at the last minute or after the fact, how come this happens, or how come that happens? So we're going to try to get that sort of question and answer on that website too. And we'll open a tab for questions, popular questions or whatever, and what the answers to those popular questions are. And hopefully we get that done this summer at SaultMajorHockey.ca once again.
And that's the biggest thing, and it's not just Sault Major Hockey. Biggest thing is what you want to try to take out of youth sports is you want to take the politics out and people parents being upset, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's often said, like, is it Tampa Bay? I think they're 17 million over their salary cap, right? And people can say, well, the rules are there though. I mean, they kind of played on the outside of the rules, but they didn't break any rules in order to do that. Now that it's playoffs, they don't have to worry about salary cap, right? You can say that so parents is, and like anybody, you tell me what the rules are, and then I'll play by the rules, but I'll, try to make them.
There's always that gray area that you can.
I'll make them fit my situation the best, right? Yeah. And coaches are infamous for doing that, and competitive ones will always do that. So, it's not a knock against it. And then sometimes rules like, maybe next year you won't be able to do that in the NHL. But the rules are that if you get a kid to stay, then you can take them, you can protect them. There's also clarification. Kids got to want to play for you again. Which, I mean, that's a good thing. So if you take a first year kid and you sit him on the bench, he's not going to want to play for he's not going to want to play for you. So it makes it be a little more fair with your ice time if you can keep the kid for next year, right? So there's another incentive that way too, in that, you can build those relationships and develop a kid and get to see, how much can you teach them in 2 years as opposed to just one season, right? So,
and it goes back to the biggest thing. Again, we're talking hockey, but youth sports, and we'll use you, for instance, as being president of Sault Major. Your kids are in their 20s now. You do it for the love of the game. No matter what, these kids are playing for just the love of the game, right? And that's the biggest thing, is it's going back to for the love of playing hockey.
Yeah, exactly. The passion that for a lot of us, it runs deep, and we like to give back to the game a little bit. My back, you get older and you're working all day on your feet, and your back can't handle playing men's league until you're 50. So you stay involved in other ways, right? I did, my years of coaching. I did, years of scheduling for the Sault Pee Wee, for the Sault Major. Now I've moved into president of Sault Major, but it's just a way of giving back because you have a passion for the game. And, and that's part of the reason I like being a manager, is I love being around the guys, just hanging with the guys around the dressing rooms, and, that locker room environment, even as a bunch of coaches, that's sitting around and a lot of times we'd be watching the game before us, sitting up in the stands as a group of coaches and having some laughs, and that's a lot of what it is just being in that environment, and how much fun that environment is. And that gets back to where we started with how excited the kids are going to be to get back into a group of 16, 17, 18 in a dressing room again.
And that goes back from, like you say, March 2020, not just the kids, the coaches. Sometimes, again, mothers or the managers or the trainers or whatever else. It's still, yes, we're getting together, 4 or 5 people together, and everybody's breaking the rules and going a little bit more than that when it comes to groups at your house. But yeah, that camaraderie is just be standing in the hallway at the John Rhodes or at the Gardens in McMeekin, just shooting the crap. It's just fun, and it adds to what we do, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And there's nothing like another one of the media outlets asked me to go on the radio, eh? And so I was followed on the radio by Denny Lambert and Jeremy Stevenson and stuff. And so afterwards, we sat around the table, and there's stories like, you don't. It's hard to find that, right? Where it didn't matter. I actually played against Denny back in our days, and
you still have your teeth.
Oh yeah. His head wasn't quite that big when I played against him. We were only 13, 14. Actually, we could play very aggressive against each other. But the next day at school, we still kind of chummed around. Like we had common friends, right?
Yeah.
And stuff. So we still went hard against each other, but there was a respect there. So, but just to sit around, like we never really, obviously I never played anywhere near the level of Denny or Jeremy. But to hear their stories, and you can sit around and talk to them about hockey, about anything, and I find that with most people in hockey, you can sit around a table and talk about experiences and ask for advice or get advice from just about anybody. I remember we had a longtime coach, Sault Major, locally, Coach Sault Ste, and I'd ask him, my oldest kid is 9 years old and thinking about the cycle, like we're going to introduce the cycle to the kids, right? Well, why do you cycle? Like, I don't know. I was never told why I cycle when I was a player playing, right? So, having done all these things, you don't often think of why you do them, right? And now you're trying to teach it to the next group, and you kind of need to know that stuff. But I've never met a coach I couldn't, in this town anyways, that wouldn't help another coach, and that you couldn't, community build with, and that's how I learned, really the reason why you cycle and when to do it and when not to do it and stuff like that, was just sitting around having a coffee with Sault Major, the old coach of the Sault Thunder, and some of the other coaches that were there that day. It's the brotherhood around the coaching rinks, around the hockey rinks and the ice rinks is really strong. It's incredible. So it's nice to be part of.
And you mentioned the last thing is you mentioned community. Can you, I guess, briefly explain what the partnership with Sault Major and the coaches with the Sault Greyhounds coming on board, I guess as advisors, or what? How's that working? What are they going to be doing there?
So they're planning a day with the coaches this summer, at least, maybe a whole weekend. I'm not sure. They're going to book a room up there at Sault College, and then they basically, as a coach, we all run into things we haven't seen before, right? And it's just sometimes you just got to say things out loud to come up with a solution, and it gives these coaches somebody to say these things out loud to. And come up with solutions, not to mention like Craig Hartsburg and the coaches, Jordan Smith and Tardif and all. These guys they're great minds, great hockey minds, right? So to have the person that you can sound off with to be somebody that is well accomplished in hockey is a great opportunity that we need to take full advantage of, as much as they're willing to allow us. Obviously Coach Dean and the boys are busy with their own objectives for their season, but they're willing to do what they can to help out the minor hockey through our coaching mentorship program. And a big thanks to Craig Coletti for kind of reorganizing it and getting, continuing to grow the involvement of our coach mentorship program. He's kind of taken the lead on that as a member of our board. But, we talked about, sitting down and talking hockey with Denny and Jeremy after a radio show. Like, so these guys are willing to talk hockey with our coaches. Anytime our guys have a situation, they need to talk hockey. To me, that's pretty special. You know, that's pretty special of an involvement for the Sioux Greyhounds to be part of, to reach out to our community that way, and work through our community members of coaches that, even, I can mention coaches with Sault Major, and you think, well, man, they got some resumes. Like, Dom DeLuca. How long's he been doing it? Like, the guy's a god when it comes to coaching.
Like, we had him on a show the other day, and he has 2 players playing, like, say, the World Championships starting tomorrow. And I said to him off camera, I'm like, Dom, I know you're all white here, but how old are you? How long have you been coaching? Like, but again, it's just showing you that how long he's been involved in hockey, right?
Exactly. And you say to him that, Coach Dean, or Coach Smith, or name any of these guys, they're willing to talk to you about that. And he's first one to say, oh, that's awesome. Like, he's, because again, the brotherhood of coaches, they enjoy talking to each other. They really do. I've seldom seen a coach that doesn't mind, picking the brain of another coach, or having their brain picked by another coach, and the stories that end up, they inevitably come to some pretty creative stories that you think they got to be making up, but they're real. And I'll tell you, it's just a great asset to have the Sioux Greyhounds on board, mentoring our guys, and and to have coaches of the ability of Dom and Jamie and Tanner Burton, Alex Cruz, Terry Chitteroni, Cole Jarrett, like all these guys that are going to enjoy those talks as well and take advantage of them, because they're not stuck in a cloud thinking that they know it all, right? Because it doesn't matter if you're Scotty Bowman, you're still learning about the game, because it's evolving. And how do you adjust with the evolvement of the game? Like, it's way faster than it was in my day. It is so puck control now. There's still a time and a place for dump and chase, but so the involvement of the game, and how do you react to that, and how do you get the kids to naturally think on themselves, right? The Adam Minor coach that's yelling instructions to the players as they play, and that's great, because at that level maybe they need that, but eventually the players have to think for themselves and think through the game themselves. And how do you introduce that? How do you get that to the players, and let them naturally evolve with the game, and adjust to the game, and stuff. You can make suggestions in the dressing room or on the chalkboard, or all that, but the kids have to grasp that. They have to. And how do you make them grasp that? And it's amazing to have those minds at the disposal of such good coaches. I don't know that Sault Major's always been fortunate to have a good squad of coaches. And I would put the squad of coaches that we have for next season up against any of the squads they've had in the past. And then the fact that they also have the Greyhound staff available to them is going to make them that much stronger, And
it just adds to Sault Major overall, right? The partnership. It just, parents coming in knowing that, again, we see Jordan, we see John behind the bench at a Greyhound game, but now the coaches can at least, like, say, interact with them a little bit, and, like, say, get a little bit more what they usually don't, right?
Exactly. And to have their numbers, to be able to recall them and say, listen, this is what happened. We had a situation this year, and it's going to get bantered around the table, these situations that happened this year. And they're pretty smart guys. Like, they're going to come up with solutions. Sometimes coaches are in tough spots, right? You want to make everybody happy, but you can't, or you're worried about safety, or all these situations that can happen. And balancing, opposites, fair play, competitiveness. There's a lot of opposites that have to be balanced, and and sometimes just bouncing it off another, higher level, or another, just sometimes just being vocal with what the problem is. A solution comes forward, right? So I think there's nothing but positives coming of this, and these guys are going to have their home numbers, like, or cell phone numbers or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so when things happen, they're going to be able to bounce it off other people and get more ideas, and it's just good for the program,
And it goes back to the OHL level. Is they sit in these boardrooms in Calgary or Toronto or Montreal listening to NHL coaches, right? So it's through the whole system.
Oh, and the way they break down video and stuff, right? Our U18 team is going to have a really good opportunity next year. They're subscribing to a program that will actually do all the video breakdowns, and I think Jamie and yourself have been talking about you doing his games again next year, because the video that you're able to provide makes breaking it down so much. The better the video is, the better the breakdown of the video is. And so between high quality video, that if you're producing it or whoever produces it, but I'm pretty sure he's going with you. I haven't heard, one way or another, but I'm hoping you guys are still talking.
Yep.
And so between the quality of it, and then you add in this program that, a parent, for instance, I got 15 minutes at lunch break that I can kill. I can go online, pull up the last game, and just put in my son's number and watch 15 minutes of just my son. It'll just put all the clips of my son playing. How great is that as a parent?
And for recruiting too, right? Like it's just like I did. And I'll be honest, George Wilson reached out. I did a Dawson Wilson. I did a recruiting video fast over the weekend because of the draft coming up.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is today in hockey, not just in hockey, but in youth sports, the recruiting video. So if you can use Huddle or whatever programs that are out there, Mike Creedon, not this number, these programs follow, you're number 6. It takes all the clips, and now Coach Henderson can say, hey, Mike, this is what you did. This is what we can do, right? Like, it's just so much makes the program so much better.
100%. I can remember when my oldest boy was setting out recruitment videos for a different sport, but I paid hundreds of dollars for a video to be made for him, and that was it. It was just that one video, and now I could, like, this Huddle program or whichever one we're using, I think it's Huddle. The coach or the player or the parent, they can go online and just boom, and then they have, like, stroke of a key, they have a highlight video by themselves. They're not paying again, right?
Yep.
For a highlight video. So I'd like to see our major bantams invest in it as well. Hopefully we get that, but for sure our U18s, that it's just going to make it. So, like, the major bantams would be nice if they did it too, just because if we ever get into a COVID situation again, right? Imagine, like, how many of these U16s wish they had their major bantam to fall back on.
Yep.
Provide video to include with what they were able to provide for this season, right? But they didn't get a lot of opportunities to provide things this season, right? So, but yeah, the technology is getting affordable to the point that Sault Major can provide that for their teams and provide the whole package. Between the quality of the videotape, that, first of all, the game's being videotaped by somebody like yourself, and then the quality of the programs that will then break it down, with it. And I think Huddle tells us that within 24 hours of it being uploaded, they'll have that. So, a Friday night game on a weekend tournament, you end up playing the same team on Sunday. Well, by then it's already broken down, and you can look at, everything that they did to you to expose your weaknesses, and everything that you did to them to expose theirs, and what you want to really, the direction you want the game to go, so it goes in favor of you. That's pretty quick turnaround. Like, live. That's almost live, like during a tournament, and yeah, so it's just another opportunity. I don't know how many times that'll actually happen, but it's just another opportunity where maybe give our guys a leg up. But definitely, I mean, the hardest part is for a kid to not go and pull up his own video clips during school, right?
Yeah, and Henda will be up at 4 a.m. Sunday morning watching that opponent again for the semifinal Sunday morning, right? You know him.
Well, 100%. He'll be looking at like, what were my zone entries or what was my zone exits every time I got scored, and you can do things like that with it, right? You can say, you can just get it to break down every time you get scored against, and you can look at that attempted exit of the zone right before you got scored against, or that type of thing, right? And the coaches are going to use that, and it's going to be a great tool for them. But I think parents and kids are going to use it just as much as a great tool for them individually. How is my face-off? So, number 3 wants to look at all the face-offs he took, right? You can just put that in, face-offs number 3, boom, and it'll give you every one of them. And he can just quickly, in 5 minutes time, he could do what would normally have taken him 2 hours to fast forward and slow down. So he can do things in 5 minutes that would have took him hours before. So
it adds to the program, right?
Time management, right? Time management. You only get so much time in a day. So if you can get something done in 5 minutes that used to take you hours, I mean, coaches can walk into a room and here, let's look at our zone entries, boom.
And I go back. It's this today, right? That's all it is. It's everything on the kids on the cell phone. Like I was on a phone call yesterday, business wise, and the lady says, "Oh, are you on your phone looking at it, or are you on a desktop?" But that's the way it is today. It's not even desktop often.
The last time I coached a team, I've been a manager since then and now president. But about 3-4 years ago. And I would do up at that point. I would go to Hockey Canada on their app, and I would pull all my drills for what I wanted to work on. So then before practice, I just put the iPad in the room, and the kids would look at the 3 or 4 main drills we're doing because they'd be already loaded in the my iPad, and so when they hit the ice, they already knew what the purpose of the drill, and they'd see us set up the cones. Okay, we saw this one,
Yep.
And that little Johnny that always comes with only 3 minutes left before they're on the ice wouldn't get a chance to see it. He'd be lost, right? But
Yep.
I'm telling you, it was kids respond to that technology and the use of that technology. And so a lot of coaches are using the iPad now to prep before practices and as well as the video afterwards, of how the drills or how the game went. So the technology is becoming bigger and bigger, and as our, Mike Zook, God bless him, he's gone, and the next generation, we're getting older, and then the generation below us, the Tanner Burdens, the Alex Cruzes, Jamie Henderson, even Jamie Henderson is getting older, There's a lot of young guys like our son's age, the He Bears and the Millers and, those guys that are helping out with teams right now. And they're going to bring a whole nother level of technology usage to the teams.
Yep.
You take the technology that I'm able to learn to use and start using. Well, these other guys, it's going to be just, I can foresee it someday. They'll do what I did on the iPad, except they'll send it to everybody's phone, and everybody will have it like on their own phone in the middle of the afternoon as to what the 3 or 4 drills are going to be, right?
Be ready tonight, more or less.
Yeah, exactly, right? So the guys, they do that with chats and chat groups and stuff, Snapchats and all that kind of stuff now. But I can see that's the next evolution where, design a practice plan and just boom, out to everybody's cell phone, and they watch a video of every one of the drills they're about to do that afternoon,
So, well, Mike, thanks for taking the over the hour and talking, and hopefully we can do this come September and talk more about what is actually happening for the season.
Sounds good. I appreciate your time, Jay.
Thank you.